So, Rory, let's talk about your early days because I think, we all love to know, excuse me, how does somebody end up doing what they do? What were you like at school? Were you sporty? Were you creative?
Oh, I wasn't expecting this for the first question. I was actually, I was, I was a bit of a nightmare in school. I was a real, I wouldn't call it a troublemaker, but I was, I was always sporty, funnily enough. I did everything, growing up in Ireland, I
Mm,
did Gaelic football, I did hurling, um, really into kind of cross country as well. I'm kind of tall and lanky, kind of,
right.
I'm all limbs. Um, but at the same time, I was a person where you would do 3 laps in this cross country adventure, and I would hide in the forest and have a cigarette after 1 lap, and then jump in at the end, and finish in the top four. And, so I was always a bit mischievous as a child, and a little bit, yeah. Well, maybe for their next panel, get my mother on and ask her that question. It'd be really interesting to see what she says.
Yeah.
But I was certainly always very sporty. Um, but yeah, creative, but didn't really know I was creative in a sense.
Mm,
It wasn't really until I left school and went to university in Dublin, where you essentially get 3 choices in Dublin. Everyone was doing business of some description, and you had 3 choices. You could either do accountancy, and I couldn't, count the fingers on my hands, or you would do business administration, which was just boring, or you did marketing. And to be honest, I did marketing more so because that's where all the girls were doing marketing. So uh, all the kind of guys who had something about them as such, we did marketing, and then I just fell in love with it. I just enjoyed marketing, and I didn't really see it as a. I see marketing a little bit different than most, I guess. I always just got involved in the more creative ideas side of marketing, and always tended to do parts of marketing that I enjoyed, as opposed to, for example, when everybody left university, you had options to go into these really big companies like Kerrygold doing butter, or Reckitt Benckiser doing, Vanish, and on these huge FMCG companies, and they just kind of bored the hell out of me. So I kind of just went into lifestyle and things that I enjoyed doing, and went from working for a cinema brand to a sports betting brand, the Paddy Power, to fitness really. And then because I kind of came back to my fitness at Gymbox many years after all that, but I always just worked in areas of marketing that I enjoyed. So I kind of just followed my passion really and things I was interested in, and then the marketing just kind of came along with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do with certainly Gymbox, it really caught, the work you did there captured so many people's attention. And I love the billboard one where you've got the start and finish across the
Yeah,
two
that was
billboards.
fun.
Because I always imagine me and my mates would probably, after a few beers, be racing back and two, trying until we literally collapsed. But your at Gymbox, I think, is where you really started to make
Yeah.
your name known. What what was it that drove you to? Some people, try to be different, but you seem to master that. How was that? Did you literally have a blank sheet of paper there and you could do your own thing?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was very lucky. I kind of came into a almost, if we go back one step. So I think I learned my trade at Paddy Power really when I was a junior marketeer. So Paddy Power, for if anyone doesn't know, kind of, sports betting, did some really wacky stunts over the years. But I was kind of that junior. We all start off somewhere, right? So I was the person going getting the coffees, and doing the admin and paying for the taxi while all the fun stuff was happening. So, but I learned so much about how to challenge the norm and how to kind of yin when people yang at Paddy Power. So I learned a lot there about, this what I've said for years later: ask for forgiveness, not permission. It's kind of where I
Yeah.
learned that saying, and it was very much this kind of I think there's almost this Irish cheekiness as well. So as an Irish man, I seem to get away with a lot more, put it that way, than I probably would if I was, English or American or whatever else. So that was the Paddy Power mindset. Like, oh, we're cheeky, we're Irish, we
Mm.
can do crazy things that no one else would do, and everybody will just kind of giggle at us. So when I went into Gymbox, I was really lucky because they essentially saw the Paddy Power playbook, I suppose, and they said, look, we want you to kind of take some of those learnings you had at Paddy Power, and we want you to try and kind of replicate them here in the fitness world. But like anything, when you come into a new business, there's an element of trust and you've got to build that up over time. So, I started quite small, doing little small stunts that wouldn't really rock the boat too much because, if you do something, rip the band-aid off day one and it backfires, I was going to get my P45 pretty quickly. Um, but there was an element of having a kind of a blank piece of paper and just like, if the idea is good enough, we'll run with it. And I think what I did there, thankfully, and I was quite successful there, was just bringing a new way of thinking. And that new way of thinking was some people said to me I was quite reckless at times, but in terms of what we were doing, and what I mean by that is we did things that no one else would do. Like we spray painted the pavements with clean graffiti. So my mantra was always, well, look, it washes off. It's just chalk, like it's chalk graffiti, so you can wash it off. Whereas
Yeah.
some people would be, well, that's vandalism. So it depends on what side of the line you're on. But my success, I guess, was not really caring what people thought of me personally. I was kind of just in doing some fun, wacky, creative stuff, and
Mm.
certainly knew it was never going to hurt anybody. Put it that way. And then I think what happens is you start small, you do a few little bits like that, and the reaction's good. It's almost like being a child and you do something and your parents kind of give you or a dog give you a treat and you kind of, oh, that was good. I'll do that again, but I'll do it bigger and better. And then it just kind of snowballs into this to your point, then doing that billboard, the two-sided billboard, which was one of the last things I did before I left Gymbox. And that was just another one of those things that I probably had the idea just walking home from the pub one night, seeing two billboards and thinking, oh, we should just do, I can't exactly remember. They kind of come
Yeah.
to you when you least expect it, the ideas really, which is kind of sometimes I'm in the pub having a beer with my mates and I'm like, oh God, that's a great idea. And I'll just write it down on my phone. And it's funny how ideas just come to you in weird senses. But I had the fortunate kind of CEO and boss who would just go, yeah, run with that. That sounds good. Let's go and see what happens.
Yeah. So you were trusted fairly
Yes.
quickly to do your
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Which was your favorite campaign if you had to choose one from Gymbox?
Wow. It's like asking some parent who their favorite child is. And, it's funny, every campaign, every bit of work that I feel like I did or everyone on this call, when you get something out the door, you're very proud of, there's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into getting any piece of work live. And, I think there were some campaigns when I got them out the door, I went, oh, that's the best campaign I've ever done. But actually, it's only 2, 3, 4 years later when you look back and there were a lot of stunts that were just, I guess, attention seeking to get us talked about. So something that would happen and you get a lot of talkability for a day, a week. But obviously all of them combined build up, they create a tone and a strategy and a narrative about what the brand is. But I'd say the one I'm most proud of actually is I think it was about 3 years ago where we came up, it was more of a bigger campaign. And the campaign essentially was about the balance in life. So, we all think in the gym world that the gym is everything. People only go to the gym. But my view was actually the gym is only a small part of your day or your week. You do other things. You're working, you're dating, you're with the kids.
Mm.
The gym is just a small part of your life. So, but being in London, London's a really fast-paced world. So, I pride myself of kind of being in the gym all the time and I'm talking to members. I'm not in the boardroom coming up with these
Yeah.
ideas. I'm talking to members and I'm asking them, I'm doing classes with them and working out with them. And somebody said to me one time, Londoners just burn the candle at both ends. They work hard, play hard. So I had this idea about a campaign which was made for London Life. So the whole campaign was about made for London Life. And then that platform became a way to create all these really interesting creative lines with things like, work, work, clean and jerk. So it was all about working and then coming to the gym. And we also had wings at 2 a.m., legs at 11 a.m. for those people who are out getting drunk and then having a cheeky kind of chicken
Yeah.
dinner on the way home. We had shots, squats. So they're all related to, lifestyle or being out and then but still hitting the gym. And it's funny, that campaign, the reason it wasn't, that big PR stunt bit that I'm become quite known for, but it really resonated with people and it created a huge amount of talkability where people could really relate back to it. And I think that when I look back at my work, that one is the strongest because it was the one that people actually would then message and they messaged me. I reckon I paid an agency a bit of money to help with that. I won't lie. There was, £30,000 probably to help me formulate that campaign. But then when we launched it and people resonated with it, they started sending me lines through DMs and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And I then did a crowdsourcing campaign. So taking the best of all these lines that came in and essentially, I got a free campaign in September on the back of my January work and I used all of our members' lines of what London is for them. And then that created talkability. And so, yeah, I was really proud of that one. And it was only probably a couple of years later when I look back at it that I realized that was the one that I really enjoyed or I'm proud of the most.
Because you're making it take the gym is just part of your day, isn't it? It's just part of all the
Yeah.
other stuff you do, which is really clever. Because I think that we do have this terrible thing, I think, in fitness of it's very serious and it's very important and you should put
Yeah.
it before everything else. Whereas there you're slotting it into all the other stuff you like to do. That's brilliant. You took a year out, didn't you, Rory? Do you think that's? I ask you about this
Mm.
because do you think that's important if people can to step away to refresh? And you travelled a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. You know what? I've actually done it twice. After the dreaded COVID period, I forget which one. There was so many that came in and out, but I kind of worked throughout COVID as a one-man team, and when the whole fitness world went digital,
Yeah,
and unfortunately I had to furlough my whole team. But I was working kind of Monday to Sunday doing live workouts on Instagram. I wasn't managing the work. I was managing the workouts, not doing them, but I was working crazy hours for months and months and months. And at the end of that period, I needed a break. So I actually went traveling for I think 10 months in the end, 10 or 11 months. And I just booked a one-way ticket to Mexico and started traveling south. And it was probably the best thing I've ever done because you get to that, and it wasn't even really any burnout issues. It was just I just fancied a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
of a break, and yeah, I was very lucky. I had financially, I was able to do it, and not everybody is fortunate to be able to do that. However, that said, I probably spent less money in Mexico and Colombia and places than I would in London. So once you got a few bob in your back pocket, it was cheaper to be there than be in London. But I think for me, it then opened up. You're seeing parts of the world that you wouldn't normally do, and then when you come back fresh, you see and you're inspired by. I've seen a fantastic kind of balloon events that I'm stealing an idea from in Mexico that I'm going to use here in Dubai at some point. So you see and you're experiencing different. You're inspired, I guess, from different parts of the world, and um, I think for me, it gave me a little bit of an opportunity, just to reset and to be fresh again and come back more motivated. But again, I was very fortunate to be able to do that, and I then took a little bit of time out again when my wife had a baby, or we had a baby.
Yeah.
She's Australian, so we went to Australia for a couple of months. But actually, I found then after a while traveling, you lose a sense that like if you don't have purpose, just it's very easy to kind of get up and
Mm.
walk on the beach or go for a run. But after a couple of months, you need a sense of purpose. And I think being in Australia and working again was a great experience to be able to kind of do a little bit of consultancy with some brands out there and kind of try your marketing skill set with a different audience, which is now what I'm doing in Dubai full time. So that's very different now.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. So how, because I know, obviously I read your stuff on LinkedIn and there are different rules you've had to adapt to, but why Dubai? What was it that drew you there?
It's probably a mix of personal and professional reasons. So there's an element I mentioned my wife's Australian, so we were toying between do we go back to the UK, do we go to Australia?
Mm.
And Dubai is kind of in the middle. So that's quite a nice thing for people, just visiting. London/Dublin to Melbourne is a long way, but actually Dubai to each is only one flight. So that was one part of it. But the as I said earlier, I very much follow my passions. So, doing, sports or, cinema. And I did, Pizza Express for a while. And then fitness. The fitness scene in Dubai is, look, it's kind of, I'm riding a wave, put it that way. It's really taking off here. There's some great opportunities. Look, there is that element of what you see on social media and the kind of Dubai influencer stuff. And I'm not seeing that. I've got an 18-month-old boy. I'm home every night by 6:30. But the fitness industry is growing at such a pace here, and GymNation as a brand is kind of where Gymbox were 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Opening, they've got 14 gyms here in the UAE, opening another, on average 1 to 2 gyms a month, which is just like a crazy amount of new gyms, and opening in the whole of Middle East. So in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, we've just signed to do 2 over there. We're now looking at Doha in Qatar. So it's a very exciting market.
Yeah.
But I did have to come over. If I'm being truthful, I had to come over a few months before I accepted the role. I wanted to have a look at the area because you do read media reports right off the Middle East and treatment to the LGBTQ plus community, to females.
Yeah.
Um, and I was very pleasantly surprised. And, myself and my wife kind of made the decision. And it is a different audience, but it's also 90%, no, maybe 80% expats here. So everybody
Yeah.
British, Irish, Australian, American, European. So actually, in one sense, you're kind of still marketing to, people that you can relate to. So as opposed to marketing to kind of an Arabic community. So it's somewhat similar, but there are certainly some taboos and things that you wouldn't talk about that I would have done at Gymbox, put it that way. Um, I wouldn't veer towards any element of alcohol or religion or politics in my marketing, which is something that I probably leaned on quite a lot at Gymbox at the time, with taking aim at, Boris Johnson, or, we had a famous or maybe an infamous campaign where we handed out condoms in Gymbox, and a few days later we did a joke product recall on social media. Um, and the internet got a little bit crazy on that one. So there's certain things that we wouldn't do I wouldn't dare do in
Mm.
this environment. Um, but saying that, I think there's an element of re- with my approach to marketing and to how I feel people consume and relate to marketing. I think there's a kind of a universal sense of humor, or things that can be disruptive but not offensive. So, for example, only today, I don't know if anyone's seen, we launched, was it, or yesterday, um, the world's heaviest billboard. So
Yes.
we
Yeah.
we essentially, had 40 plates, and we built this billboard on the side of our gym because actually, one of the challenges in Dubai is out of home marketing is almost impossible unless you are a property developer or an oil baron, because it's just, they're huge billboards and nobody can afford them.
Mm.
Um, so I couldn't do a billboard, so I just built my own, which is just mad. Um, I had some of the team here, and we own one of the gyms, or we own a couple of the gyms, and we own the building. So I just built a billboard on the side of the gym, and then created this the world's heaviest billboard a couple of days ago, and it's amazing. I couldn't have done that in the UK, like, and so being in a new country like this, suddenly I'm like this child in a playground. I've got all these new opportunities, and I'm able to hustle, and that's something that my colleagues and my wife says to me, like, why the hell are you building your own billboard? That's ridiculous. Like, but it's kind of just that's my mindset, right? I'm just kind of thinking, I'm kind of like trying to find new ways to surprise and get people talking about the brand, and doing something like that, regardless of it being the world's heaviest billboard. Even building my own billboard create a lot of talkability in Dubai. Like, is that
Yeah.
legal? Is that something you can do? And it goes back to my kind of mantra about asking for forgiveness, not permission. So at the moment, I'm still not in jail, which is good.
Are those plates on the bill actual weights?
Mm.
Are they really? Or are they mock-ups?
Yes, they are. However, they were manufactured. We manufactured them. We've got a guy down here, so they're lighter. They're not quite 25 kilo.
Ah,
They're
yeah.
they're like plastic. I reckon they're about 3-4 kilo each.
Because I
There's a
looked at
little there's a little bit of white lies bending the rules to
of
to
course,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
to make things work, but it's yeah, to my earlier point about, spray painting the pavement, or kind of faking a 25 kilo plate. It's kind of, for a creative purpose, put it that way.
Absolutely. I thought it was really clever. There was one of your pictures, and if anybody's not seen this, go on to Rory's LinkedIn account and have a look because it was yesterday. And one of the pictures is of a muscular guy. You can see this
Yeah.
big bicep, and he's sort of lifting this plate up as though he's going to put it on the billboard. And I just thought, that billboard would fall down if it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
1 ton, one
clever, really,
ton.
really clever, and just sort of bending the rules a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? My advice always when I'm talking to people who are looking to do marketing is, if you don't bend the rules, you'll essentially just do what everyone else has done to date, and you will struggle to stand out, or to reach your audience, or get a reaction from your audience. So I always think by bending the rules, pushing the boundaries a little bit, is where you get the real magic.
Yeah. Who inspires you, Rory? Is there anyone in particular that, any books or any people that you
Um, what? There's a really good book. I forget the name of the guy now, but it's a book called Be More Pirate. Um,
heard of that?
an old ad agency guy, well, not that old, an ad agency guy. And it's a really good book if anyone gets the opportunity to buy it on Amazon. It's only a couple of books. It kind of talks about how the pirates were the challengers to the Navy on the seas back in the day, and Blackbeard, and essentially they were the challengers to the Navy, and to everything else, and how they had to go about things in a very kind of unorthodox fashion. And now it depends on what side of the coin you're on. Again, obviously some of these pirates weren't the nicest of people, but they would always bend the rules and push things. So this book called Be More Pirate gives you some really lovely stories in it, and relates it back to like Banksy or Elon Musk, and how they challenge things.
Yeah.
And then it relates them into very funny stories about Blackbeard and all these pirates and how they do. And the back of the book then gives you this really nice, where each chapter, there's like a section after you read it where it asks you to, think about your role and your business. How
Mm.
can you apply some of the learnings here to what you do? So I really enjoyed that book because it made me think about certain questions, and then how would I apply them to Gymbox at the time. So I would really recommend Be More Pirate. Again, forget the name of the author, but it's a pink book. You can't miss it. Really, really good.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed that at weekend you did how many High Rocks events?
I did 4, yeah, in 3 days.
Four. What's your view on fitness racing? What do you think?
You know what? I enjoy it, but that's certainly because I struggle, not struggle to motivate myself, but I'm like, I'm not good at programming myself. And if I kind of go and do my own workout, I kind of get lost in, I try to leave my phone now in my locker because I could be scrolling for 5 minutes on LinkedIn or something in
Yeah.
between a set. And before I know it, 10 minutes have gone. Whereas with the fitness racing, it helps my training because what I'll do is I'll just put on a 40-minute timer or whatever I've got to do and I just smash through it. But I just can't believe how big it's become. It's just phenomenal in the last couple of years. I guess it's bringing more people into fitness, right? From what I can tell, it's like people who may not have been going to a gym or to exercise suddenly from a community point of view, friends are going and signing them up to these races, and there's friends of mine back in both Dublin and London who weren't really into fitness. They'd play the odd little five-a-side football or they'd kind of go swimming once a week. But suddenly, I would say, right, we're going to sign up to this race in 5 months' time. And, we were then kind of having a little Saturday session every week.
Mm.
And it became this really nice way for us to go. And, normally we would just go to the pub and have a beer. That's how we'd catch up. Whereas now we're catching up with a workout in the morning and then having a coffee and a croissant before we part ways. So I think, it's certainly from my point of view, kind of brought more people into kind of being active and exercising, which is only a good thing, really. What do you think? Have you seen that it's huge there, right, too?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think as well, one of the big points is that it keeps people in fitness because suddenly they have a purpose and
Yeah.
if an operator's really good, they'll set up sort of training camps and that kind of thing that you can join and stick with for 12 weeks until you all compete. Or there are people here on this call who are doing sort of simulation events where they do their own stuff, their own comps and prepare everybody for them. So it has taken me a little bit by surprise at the growth. I mean, I think, in fact, we've got Emma with us here from Athex. Athex is a UK brand, but
Yeah.
it's suddenly going global. Adidas are sponsoring, and so
Yeah,
it's
I
just
saw that.
so
They had a great poster, didn't they? And I couldn't believe on the poster. It was like I don't know, Jay-Z or someone going on tour around Europe. Like the amount of
yeah,
locations it had. It was phenomenal. It was a
yeah,
great poster, yeah.
yeah. What do you see? Obviously, with a Middle Eastern focus, what might be the growing trends next year?
Oh, it's tricky. You know what? I think going back to the fitness racing one, and
Mm.
I still see that growing a lot. But I think the challenge is, High Rocks have had a monopoly, right, on the fitness racing, really.
Yeah.
But I think, as you say, with Emma and the work that the guys are doing there, I think you're going to see um, more options in that
Yeah.
because I do feel that there's an element with it. High Rocks is fantastic, and like I say, I'm a big High Rocks fan. But it almost got to that point. The success might become their not their downfall, but I think there's an element of they're start having to do ballots for tickets. There's they're
Yes. Yeah.
charging for spectators. They're doing all these things that are creating a little bit of negativity within the fitness racing community, as far as I can tell. I'm quite active in some of these groups, and I think there is an opportunity. Certainly, more in the Middle East, and actually, Spartan is a very pop. Like I know it's in the UK too, but Spartan races are really big here, and maybe that's the outdoor aspect of the Middle East. But there is a real what's the word? I won't call it amateur. That's not the right way of saying it. But people who are looking for new ways into fitness and experiences are looking for more of these fun events. And the High Rocks one, as great as it is, and more people are doing it, has become very competitive and very statistically driven.
Serious.
Shave
Yeah.
10 seconds off by doing this and this, etc. Whereas some of the more fun fitness races, I think you're gonna see a lot more of them coming into market. That you can do with your um, your kids or your pregnant wife or whatever. I think there's going to be a lot more of that that come in as well.
Mm.
We're coming into in Dubai. They've got this really interesting concept that starts in it's November. They call it Dubai 3030, which I don't know if anyone's heard of. I'd never heard of it actually. And Dubai 3030 is a initiative by the government to just put a focus on wellness and fitness. So for the whole month, they kind of encourage or challenge everyone to do 30 minutes of exercise every day for 30 days. And they put on massive events. So for the 4 Saturdays throughout November, they close down this, I can't even pronounce the road, Sheikh Zak Road, which is essentially the Oxford Circus or
Yeah.
and there's like, I think 500,000 people do this run, like a 10K run over a day. It's phenomenal. And every Saturday they have something different. So they have a massive paddleboard yoga the following Saturday in the mountains. They do a yoga session one Saturday and then they do a cycle on the road the following Saturday. But there's always stuff going on, and it's really amazing. Like I know UK Active do so a daily fitness one, but they do it for the whole month here, and it's just and every gym gets involved. So we put on free classes for. We put 2 free classes on every day for the month for people who aren't members to just come in, and if they wanted to try and be fit, they can come in. So, it was just a little point. It's just really interesting how the different markets treat fitness and how they kind of try and encourage people to get involved. And then the idea behind that is if it's almost you dip your toe in the water, you sample fitness if you haven't got into it in that month, and then you continue with that, whether you like the yoga or running or paddleboard, whatever it might be, you then try and encourage people to continue that beyond that kind of month.
Yeah, I was in Dubai earlier this year and I went to see Precision Clinics,
Mm.
which is very much around preventative health stuff. So, there was the oxygen chamber, red light
Yeah.
therapy, all of that. Is that something that you're seeing grow in Dubai, Rory, or is it still quite small at the moment?
No, it is. And funny you say that, actually. You just reminded me. I was in Dubai Active over the weekend, and I don't know if anyone is friendly with Norris.
Yeah, yeah,
He's on LinkedIn. He's moved over here recently as well, and Norris has got some really good contacts in these kind of so precision he's talking to, and there's he was at Dubai Active with a kind of a robot massage stand,
right.
and it was just phenomenal how this robot scans your body, knows how to do stuff. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was just this whole kind of recovery and wellness section, and they had cold ice baths and infrared saunas. But then it was this robot, and it would scan your body and then massage you exactly where you need to be massaged, which was just bizarre. Um, but yeah, we're even looking at it here with it goes beyond certainly just the gym and fitness. So, we're putting in um, a whole kind of in-body element
Yeah,
to the gyms and scanning your body, and that's included in your membership. You get a free scan. You get to, look at, where your goals might be in the back of that. We're putting in recovery into some of our gyms as an additional bolt on. And so, yeah, it's kind of, I think fitness is growing beyond the gym, right? It's kind of more
yeah.
this wellness and holistic approach to your well-being.
Right. Rory, I'm gonna because I know I'm conscious of your time. We've probably got 5 minutes, so
10, I got 10. I don't have to collect the baby till just after 5 my time. I've got time.
okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, please? If you do, please just introduce yourself and where it is that you're based, and don't be shy. Emma.
Oh, you might know that I would have some questions.
Hi,
Um,
Emma.
Hi, Rory. I am a massive, massive fan of the marketing at Gymbox. A massive fan of Gymbox, actually. I think my favourite campaign was post-COVID. Thanks, Joe Wicks. We're back. We'll take it from here.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that campaign. I was
thank
walking through
you.
London doing some High Rocks promotion, saw this massive billboard and was like, right, I'm taking a photo of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
But you know the funny thing about that, Emma, before you ask any questions, so I'll just give you that. That's a perfect example of asking for forgiveness, not permission. We never asked Joe Wicks if he could do that. And I remember at the time when we came up with the idea, um, we said, oh, well, like, because Joe Wicks was the poster boy of COVID, right? We said, oh, well, why don't we, he's the best person to kind of poke fun at in a nice way because it's about getting back into fitness physically into the gym as opposed to YouTube. And so my kind of legal guy, who's a freelance guy, said, oh, you can't do that, you get in trouble, whatever. We need to ask him. And I just lied and said, oh, yeah, I got permission, it's fine. And like, we just put the billboard up anyway. And then, he saw it and he actually posted it on LinkedIn or sorry, Instagram saying this is like the best campaign ever. So Joe Wicks actually saw it and shared it, which was great.
Yeah, so that was actually my question. Did you contact Joe Wicks prior to thanking him for his efforts in COVID and telling him that you'll take it from here? That's a
No,
no then.
didn't we didn't do it. And I think the interesting thing about that as well is we were kind of ready for if he did come. The one thing that people I think have a misconception about is if you do something that is wrong or risky, um, you always have an opportunity to apologize and take it down before anything bad will happen for the most part. So what would happen there is Joe Wick's representatives, if he didn't like it, he said, we see that you've used Joe Wicks's name on that billboard. You've got 7 days to take it down, or we will come after you legally or something. And then our view was like the damage is done. We've kind of got people's attention and we've shared it socially. So yeah, we never asked him, and the moment he shared it and said this is amazing marketing, I just kind of had a sigh of relief. It was like, oh, I'm not getting fired.
Because that's my next question, and I apologize to everyone else because I'm sure everybody's got questions and you've got to go. But that's my next question because people have tried to replicate what you do. Like
Mm,
they've seen the marketing campaigns, they've seen the risque element of it, and how you work with fun and tongue-in-cheek kind of marketing campaigns. And then you had one rebel that put up the Kate Middleton where she's gone missing. Can you remember that one?
oh yes, that's
Yeah,
right. I do remember that one. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And
And
it's
then,
almost like they were trying to replicate the fun and risque attitude of Gymbox, but just totally missed the mark
yeah,
completely. And they put because it was literally the day that she announced that she got cancer.
that's right. I do remember that
Yeah.
very well. Yeah,
Yeah. So do you find that there are around London previously, obviously, because you're not there anymore,
yeah,
but when you were with Gymbox, did you have a lot of people copying what you did and missing the point? Because also you had
yeah.
a lot of people copying you during COVID without the box, and you launched
Mm,
the box, then lots of other people, Equinox came on board and they put their online stuff on, and
yeah. Yeah, look, I kind of take pride in being one of the most copied brands or marketing people around. It's kind of a nice thing in a way. But what I would say, and look, it is challenging, and I saw someone's point there about, a bit more difficult in the public sector. But the point I'd make on that one is you do have to stay true to who you are as a brand and, almost not try and just be something that you're not. So the challenge with the One Rebel one was they hadn't built that credibility over years and years and years because it compounds, right? It's what I said earlier. We did a lot of stunts that are a flash in the pan. They get some, a bit of kind of activity, but all builds up to Gymbox to this cheeky brand. They can kind of get away with it. It's like Ricky Gervais as a comedian. Some of the stuff he says, because it's Ricky Gervais, he can kind of get away with it. But suddenly, because One Rebel did that, people go, well, that's not a One Rebel thing to do. And also, I was always very mindful, Joe Wick's one aside, is you never really take aim or pick an enemy with a particular person, a category maybe. So, yogis or CrossFitters, you can kind of make fun at that as a category, but as from a person point of view, I always try to stay away from that. Because it is tricky to start suddenly, switching. If you're a very serious brand, I think you can do disruptive stuff through media and through everything else, but your tone should stay true to the brand that you are and to what you think your audience will accept.
okay. And I have one more question. So
Sure.
as a marketeer and somebody that is really, really known in the space, are you driven by performance metrics, or are you driven by how you make people feel with the marketing?
So it's a really good question. I always talk about like the three Fs, like fame, fandom, and financial. So when I look at doing any bit of work, I look at my fame, fandom, or financial. Fandom is like community. So like fan, let's just make it an F because it's better. But it's basically community, fame, and financials. And every bit of work I do, I kind of look to kind of go, right, is this particular bit of work fandom, building the community and making people excited and what we're doing? Is this just about getting some noise at this time of the year? So it's, World Mental Health Day, and we took all the weights out in the gym recently at GymNation. That was just one about creating some fame on that particular day. Or is it, as you say, performance and KPIs? And I try to have a bit of a mix on that because ultimately, if all I'm doing is driving people, to smile, ultimately my CFO is going to come back to me and go, don't care if people are smiling. I need leads, I need members. But there's almost an element of some of that fandom and fame. It's the longer term view. It makes your brand sticky. So while you might not be able to prove that that's driving people in the door tomorrow, I think there's a long term thing that you can see your brand health, and actually you notice it more through retention, I think, of your performance as opposed maybe to acquisition in most instances.
Okay. Thank you, Rory.
You're
I'm gonna
welcome. Thanks for the
let
questions.
everybody else ask questions now, and I'll step away.
Yeah, thanks for being on the Emma Waring show, Rory. Has anybody else any questions? Everyone's shy. I need to just ask you, do you think, because what I've learned from listening to you, particularly with Emma's questions, to be quite frank, is humour is important, isn't it? Because in many ways, I think if you're subtle with humour, it breaks down the barriers to participation, if you like. Because if somebody thinks, well, actually, because I've got this real issue at the moment, Rory, where I think fitness is getting too serious.
Yeah.
If you go into a JD gym, it says fitness just got serious, which is a bit sad, I think, really. And actually, it's the fun bits of fitness. You've used the word fun a few times in our conversation, and I think humour really does reduce that tension and the nervousness about going in the gym for a first time.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny. One of my first meetings in Gymbox, I was chatting to the senior leaders and I was trying to figure out where they wanted to take the marketing and the tone. And I talked about, when you're a kid and you're running around the field kicking a ball, or whatever it might be, whatever you're into. When you're a kid, you don't see it as fitness. You just see it as doing something fun, something you enjoy. And the fitness comes as a consequence of having fun and enjoying yourself in what you're doing. And what I've always tried to do with the marketing is, again, we're not trying to, cure cancer here or anything else. We're just trying to make fitness accessible, put a smile on your face and do things differently so that when you come into that industry or into those four walls of that gym, you almost kind of like, not lose yourself, but you just go in and enjoy yourself and enjoy that moment. And the marketing should always try to nod to that and almost give you that wry smile of this is actually a little bit different than what I'm used to in a gym. And that's always my intention. All the marketing, hopefully, that people see, it's never too serious. It's, the world's heaviest billboard, like
Yeah,
it's just something a bit interesting and it's fun and it creates talkability but it takes talkability around fitness and around exercise and health, but done in a very different way. And that's always what I've tried to do.
yeah, it's clearly worked. Well, has anyone any other? Let me just check very quickly. There's a comment.
Thanks, Chris.
Essentially, loving Rory's work, pushing the boundaries. Join the meeting to understand how this might work in Dubai and the wider regions, which Rory has touched on. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Emma, for your questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending. But most importantly, Rory, thank you for taking time out to spend with us today. I'm honoured. Honestly, it's I've been a bit like I told Rory this before we started. I've been quite nervous, and I don't usually get nervous, but because I admire your work so much, and
No, you know what? It's been really nice. I've never done anything like this before. I've done a few podcasts and stuff. So look, thanks, Graham, for having me on. It was really enjoyable to talk about. I could probably talk to you all day. Only that I've got to collect my boy from nursery, but I really enjoyed speaking to you guys. And if anybody wants to ever reach out on LinkedIn or whatever, just feel free to add me and, just any questions or any advice or anything, I'll do my best to help.
thank you, Rory. That's fantastic.